Welcome, everyone. And as you come in, would you please put your name and group in the chat? That would be real helpful for us. It's good to see you all. And I hope everyone's having a good day. Eden, is everybody in?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of lagging on one person, but it looks like everyone is getting in now.
Okay, great. All right. Well, I'm Joan Patterson. I am with the Coalition of Refuge Friends and Advocates, otherwise known as CORFA, and we want to welcome you all here and thank you for taking time this morning or this afternoon, whatever time zone you're in, to be part of this program. And I want to thank, I really want to thank friends, because so often the ideas for these programs actually come from all of you. So if you have thoughts about what you would like to see for future webinars, would you also please put that in the chat? We'd love to get people's ideas. And if you want to be part of presenting a webinar on a specific topic, something that you've done that your group is really proud of, please put that in the chat too. The webinars are done through a partnership with Coalition of Refuge Friends and Advocates, and also the National Wildlife Refuge Association. We have a couple of board members from CORFA on here. I see Ken and Cheryl and myself and Karen and Lisa. So it's a pretty good number of us. And if I've missed anybody, I'm sorry. And then also from Refuge Association, Eden is our technical wizard here. And Marco has been so supportive of the Friends program and is here to help all of us. So this afternoon's webinar, it should be a fun one because we have quite a few friends presenting on this one. But it's about hosting events and using them as fundraisers and what all of this involves. We are lucky to have 4 presenters for this. Bonnie Anderson from the Friends of Tualatin, and then Polly Shepard from the Friends of Seney, which is in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and Karen Holzer from DC Booth in South Dakota, and Sue Wilder from Louisiana. So lots of different ideas. I will tell you, I did listen to their presentations yesterday, and there is usually one common theme, and it's liquor. And then too, these guys have put a lot of time and effort into planning out these events so that they are successful. So I am going to turn it over. Oh, before I forget. So if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, because if you're like me, 15 minutes later, you'll forget what your question was. So go ahead, put it in the chat. We will take questions at the end of everyone's presentation. Cheryl and I are going to be in charge of that. And if you're not comfortable putting it in the chat, then at the end, you can raise your hand and we'll call on you, okay? Anything else I should mention, guys, before I turn it over to Bonnie?
I think you got it, Joan.
Okay. All yours, Bonnie.
And thank you, Eden, for getting my slides up there, and she'll be advancing them for me. As Joan said, my name is Bonnie Anderson. I'm the Executive Director with Friends of Tualatin River National Wildlife Refuge. We're located here in Sherwood, Oregon, just outside of Portland. We are an urban refuge. We are just celebrating our 30th anniversary as a Friends group and the 31st anniversary as a refuge. Just a little bit of background about myself. For over a decade, I was the chair of our Tualatin River Bird Festival. So I do have a lot of experience with putting together events and festivals. So slide. So Brews for the Birds. The Brews for the Birds was a beer and music festival that we hosted just this past August. It was our very first event for Brews of the Birds, and it was a benefit for the Friends of Tualatin River National Wildlife Refuge Complex. Slide. What I'm going to cover today is why a bird festival. Out of all the fundraising ideas, why this one? Also go over logistics, how we prepped for the event, the actual day of the 2-day event, how it actually went down, and then the results, measuring the success of the event. Slide. So why a beer festival? There's lots of different ways to raise funds, but the beer festival idea came from going to a local family entertainment area called Langer's Entertainment. It's based in Sherwood, and thinking about ways that we could work together. And also, being in the Pacific Northwest, beer festivals are part of our vernacular: beer, wine festivals, cider festivals. And there was kind of a hole that was developed this year because one of our largest beer festivals, the Oregon Brew Festival, was no longer happening. So thinking about looking at the list of beers and ciders that were available at Langer's Family Entertainment, and seeing that almost all of them were from local breweries and cideries, the idea kind of came to me with looking at the venue, looking at their connections to the community, and knowing that it would be a fun activity for the friends to be involved with. So slide. So coming out of the pandemic, one of the things that became we became very aware of is that we needed to diversify our funding sources. Almost 3 years our visitor center was closed. And in our visitor center, we have our Nature's Overlook store, we have our volunteer docents. These were instrumental in helping provide funding for the friends, but our store was closed. Our docents weren't connecting with new community members to become members of our organization. And we saw our numbers and our membership declining. So we needed to find other ways to bring in funding. We also wanted to build a bridge with a younger demographic. Brew festivals generally attract a much younger audience, and not necessarily the same people that are coming to our other events. Another opportunity would be to grow partnerships with the community and businesses, Langer's Entertainment, which I mentioned before, and also the sponsors that we reached out to for the festival. It also was going to provide an opportunity for an off of the Refuge event, and that we could join with more diverse vendors at the festival offsite, and an opportunity for our conservation partners to come together. We haven't hosted an on-site bird festival for over 3 years, so this was an opportunity for our conservation partners that haven't connected with our community through the bird festival to be able to come to the Beer and Music Festival and have that connection. And also it gave us the first opportunity to bring vendors into a festival atmosphere so that they could connect with the community. Also, we were developing a new and engaging way to connect with the community. So this was our first opportunity to promote the friends. We are so busy promoting the Refuge and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that a lot of times the message of the friends can get lost. And this was a festival that was a benefit for the friends. Obviously, the message of U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Refuge is part of that, but it's really putting the friends out there into the community. Slide. Logistics. It takes a dedicated team. The actual time frame that we had to put this event together was very short. After getting through the original negotiations with Langer Entertainment, the board of directors of the Friends, all of our insurance requirements and contracting, we had about three and a half months to put this festival together. So I worked with 2 very dedicated volunteers. One is a board member who is a recovering Rotarian, and then also one of our volunteers that worked side by side with me on planning the bird festivals. So the 3 of us partnered with the general manager and the marketing manager for Langer's Entertainment, and that was our committee to put the festival together. Slide. And as Joan mentioned before, it takes a lot of hard work and dedication to put on an event that seems effortless. But for those of you that have put together festivals or events, you know that it takes a lot of hard work. So we developed the relationship with our local family-owned entertainment center. So Langer's Entertainment is envision a casino slash Cabela's slash Chuck E. Cheese. It has food, bowling, a bar, arcade. It's a massive building and establishment. And what's key to this is that it's family owned by one of the founding families of the Sherwood community, and they are incredibly civic minded. So it was continuing to develop that relationship with the Langer family and the business. And it started off with another fundraiser that they did with us. And I think from that, they found that we were a serious nonprofit that they could work with. And the thought of having the festival, they knew that they could count on us for what we would be able to deliver. And then we knew that we could count on their support. We reviewed what the outcomes would be. It is incredibly important that it be mutually beneficial. We didn't want to just take from their business. We also wanted to support their business. So we talked about those things and how we could deliver those. Again, I recruited a very small but hardworking planning committee. We needed to develop a lot of things for the festival, but a key point to this, and I think you'll hear this throughout all of the presentations, is I didn't want to create another heavy lift for our board of directors and for our volunteers. Our bird festivals in the past have been 1, 2, and 3 day events, and they can be incredibly draining for your volunteer base. What we really wanted was something fun, something that we could partner with someone else to do part of the heavy lift. And I think that's what we really ended up with. We set up a budget, we set up goals, and we set up objectives. I really didn't think that we would make any money the first year, but I know that if we continue to work hard and over time, that it can become a substantial fundraiser. We needed to arrange for stages and musical acts. And again, let me preface this by saying we had 3 months to put all this together, and our event was the first week in August, a time when most festivals are already very well established. So we were very lucky to find our musical acts and get our stage. We developed a sponsorship package, we confirmed sponsors, developed promotional and marketing materials. And this is something I really want to talk about, is we recruited volunteers that we called friendlies. And what they were responsible for was gathering the metrics from the attendees of the event. And so the friendlies were really our volunteer base. They had specific t-shirts that they wore, and you'll see a photo of that coming up. And they were asked to mingle within the crowd and talk with the attendees and asking them a series of questions, but really having conversations with them. And we limited the questions to 6. And it's important to gather these metrics from your attendees. So they were asking, where did you come from? And what we found out was 24% had come from Portland, 19 had come from Sherwood, which is the community that we hosted the event in, 15 from Tigard, and 10 from Beaverton, which are surrounding communities. We also asked, had they ever been to Langer's before? And this is really important and key to why the Langers wanted to partner with us. 61% of the people that came had never been to Langers. And so it was helpful for their business to get the word out, and they really appreciated that type of information. We also asked if they had ever been to the Refuge before, and 76% had said yes, which is not surprising because they were coming to a benefit to support the Refuge. But it also opened up an opportunity to have conversations with the attendees about the Refuge. What do you like about the Refuge? You know, if you haven't been, what you could expect when you visit. We also asked if they were interested in volunteering. Having come out of the pandemic, our volunteer numbers had dwindled. So building up our volunteer base gave them opportunities to talk about volunteer opportunities there and how to reach out to either the Friends or the Refuge. And then we also asked about, how did you hear about the event? And 40% said word of mouth. So that's a really important indicator that people were talking about the event with others. And 15% we had purchased some yard signs, 10% was Facebook, and then also there was a percentage we had participated in a community parade that we've been in the last few years. And this year it was really nice to see people reacting to the fact that we were having an event and we held up our signs that we had, and hearing the feedback from the people along the parade route. We also had a news segment that Langers had arranged for us, where we were able to go on and give an interview about the event. The other question that we asked was, what was their favorite part? What were they enjoying about the festival? And so we heard a wide variety of things, but they enjoyed all of it, the music, the fact that they were able to support a good cause, and then just a conversation about any suggestions that they might have going forward. And so we took a lot of those suggestions too in our planning for this next event. Two things that were important to people were that it was family friendly. Even though it was a beer festival, it was family friendly, and that it was dog friendly. Another important part about what goes on here in the Pacific Northwest is knowing your audience. So beer and dogs and family were all part of the important part of this planning. So we had a a sponsor that helped us provide a doggy lounge, so people were able to bring their dogs and enjoy a nice day out at a beer festival. Slide. So we'll talk a little bit about the event. Slide. So this was our poster that we ended up with, the final poster. Langers was our title sponsor. I want to say a little bit about Langers and why this is important. We were able to partner with a family-owned business, so they were able to make a lot of decisions, and they are a huge sponsor of nonprofits and the community of Sherwood. They also did the heavy lift and the infrastructure for the event. They took care of all of the pouring of the alcohol, the food, a lot of the logistics like bathrooms and providing all of those facilities. So those were things that we didn't have to worry about. And the pouring of the beer, although some volunteers were disappointed that we didn't have pourers as a volunteer opportunity, it alleviated the need for us to get additional insurance. It alleviated my need to find a lot of volunteers to work those shifts. And it also offered them the opportunity as a business to staff the event and to sell the food. So it was a win-win. So if you can find a business like that to partner with, I would highly recommend it. It took a lot of the responsibilities off of the Friends. One of the other things I want to talk about quickly is the musical acts. We had a wide variety of music. We had folk, zydeco, blues, all sorts of different music, rock and roll. The first band that opened up our event was The Dudes, which features our refuge biologist, Kurt Mykut, and one of our big volunteers, Michael Burnett. We had art vendors and conservation vendors there. We limited the hours that they were required to be there. They were there from 12 to 6. And the event was on Saturday and Sunday. And then we listed some of our sponsors here too. Slide. So here's just a few pictures of the event, and anybody who knows Chelsea McKinney, she's pictured up there with her daughter, and just to show that it was a family-friendly event. We had down the corner, you'll see the Friends booth. We had a raffle. It's our first time ever having raffles. So we had a raffle set up. We had a small sampling from our Nature's Overlook store for sale. Kurt, our biologist, is featured there with the Dudes. We had a stage set up for the 5 bands. Slide. There's a picture of one of my favorite volunteers, my daughter Blair, who flew in from Iowa for the event, but that shows the t-shirts that we purchased. So it's that kind of orangey yellow color. So we were easily identified within the festival if anyone had questions or needed help with anything. Also, I think all the volunteers liked receiving the t-shirts. And just a side story, we actually had a gentleman from California who was on a board of directors at a nonprofit. He actually bought one of our t-shirts from us to take back to his board for an example of something that they could do. Up at the top is one of our sponsors and vendors, Ewing Young. What we were able to do with our vendors is offer a free table. Ewing Young was a sponsor too, but we did outreach to Indigenous artisans and local artisans trying to break down barriers so that they would have the opportunity to table at our festival. Ewing Young is a locally owned, female-owned distillery in Newburgh, and they did sampling and they also sponsored. The center picture is a listing of all of the beers and ciders that were donated for the event. And one side note also about beer and cider is that if you're thinking about doing an event like this, statistics have shown that a lot of people have moved away from micro beer drinking. And so we included ciders and seltzers. So you may want to think about that if you're considering planning one of these events. They were one of the bigger sellers of our festival. Slide. One of our conservation partners, Tualatin River Keepers, was very happy to table there. They also donated to our raffle. The other top corner shows one of our artisan vendors, Charlie Sambo, who donated the first of the raffle prizes that a lot of the other vendors ended up donating to our raffle, completely unsolicited. Charlie also gave back a percentage of his sales to the Friends and is now one of our new vendors that we sell his greeting cards in our Nature's Overlook store. The bottom corner shows a picture of some of the family activities that were going on. And then the other picture is of the Junior Duck Stamp display and from Fish and Wildlife Service. So again, promoting Fish and Wildlife Service, promoting the Friends. Slide. So slide. We'll just celebrate our successes. So the festival actually brought in $16,908. That is before expenses. Completely blew my expectation. Our expenses were $7,767. So we just netted over $9,000 for the Friends general account. Slide. Again, like I said, $9,000 for the Friends general account. It was also a success for Langers. We connected with new members. We actually connected with a brand new board member who just joined our board on Saturday. Brings a lot of nonprofit experience and energy. We continue to grow our partnership with local businesses. 60% of the attendees had never been to Langers. Increasing awareness for Fish and Wildlife Service, the Refuge, and the Friends. And one of the lessons I'll leave you with that we learned from planning or from recapping last year's event was that we're going to switch it over to a Friday afternoon, Saturday event. But, slide. And thanks. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to please reach out to me. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Bonnie. And Polly, you ready to go?
I'm ready.
Okay, thanks.
So my name is Polly Shepard. I'm on the board of the Friends of Seney National Wildlife Refuge, as Joan said, in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Next slide. So to give you a little background about the UP, because it's relevant to what we ended up doing, the UP is about 16,000 beautiful square miles, but our population is just about 300,000. So we have a population density of about 18 per square mile. And I randomly looked at a state in Connecticut is like 734 per square mile. So as we say, we've been socially distancing since 1837. So since COVID, you can find that slogan on bumper stickers and sweatshirts and in every tourist store along the way. Tourism is a major economic driver for us. We have a lot of long-term summer people, lots and lots of lakes up here, and people have been coming up here for 30 years and it's like their second home. But many of them do go elsewhere in the winter months. And we still have lots of other summer tourists. The Seney complex is about 95,000 acres in the middle of the UP. We have a point, globally important bird area at Whitefish Point. They manage several other island refuges and co-manage some other, like the Kirtland Warbler area. The refuge has been around for almost our 90th birthday coming up, includes a wilderness area a wilderness area and the Strangmore Bog, a national natural landmark. So we are luckily have about 80,000 visitors every year, at least pre-COVID. We're climbing back. And the one, in addition to the other things that are famous and the species that we have, for some reason, our loons are just incredibly popular. And we have the world's oldest common loon of known age. And he and his mate for a number of years were the most productive, they say. So lots of baby chicks that have come back to Seney as well. Next slide. The Friends group has been around since 1987. I'm relatively new. This is maybe my second or third year on the board. When we look back, the group has been incredibly responsible. They've saved their money. They've worked hard. They've been very fiscally responsible. They've also been very responsive to the Refuge. So whenever the Refuge has asked for funding, the Friends have been able to provide it. They have not been great risk takers, which has been good in many ways. They've been very reliable, and we're all also retired. So looking for that younger demographic that Bonnie talked about, I'll be talking about as well. We have time, but we are all retired, which is good because we bring a lot of skills to the table, but again, we need some younger folks. As Bonnie also said, a lot of recent events have provided both opportunities and challenges for us. We have some new board members who came in and we're sort of ready to shake things up. The pandemic closures, of course, hurt our bookstore sales because it was closed and visitors, a lot of areas were closed. And then thanks to the federal government and the Great Outdoors funding, we've had a lot of infrastructure repairs, which has been some closure of some of our trails and drives, and the demolition of our visitor center, which will be rebuilt and is in the process of design. But in the meantime, we have this little tiny temporary visitor center. The staff does amazing work with it and the volunteers, but so it's been a challenge to find things to engage people and where to engage them, but it's also been almost an opportunity to say, we really did have a chance to sort of stop the world. Let's figure out where we want to go and what we want to do next. So next slide. So we really wanted to focus on growing our membership and all the good things that come with that. When we talk about membership benefits, really it was a discount at the nature store and a newsletter. So what else can we offer people that makes them want to get engaged with us? We felt like that's the way to improve awareness of the Refuge and really continue the message of why refuges are important to the world. So advocacy is a piece of what we're trying to do as well with funding, but we want more ambassadors for the Refuge out in the world, and we also need more volunteers and more donations. So we're looking for that human and financial support that we hope membership can bring us. So in order to do that, we obviously needed to gather some information. We did spend a lot of time planning, and we needed to come up with something that would appeal to our current members, appeal to new potential members, compete with all the things that summer tourists come up here to do, and then actually engage people for the long run. Next slide. So we created a marketing committee and obviously looked at some market research. We discovered that a lot of people knew about the Refuge. A lot of people had been going there for years. Some people had never been going there. We had very low market penetration in our local population. So we have a lot of visitors that would become members when they visited, but then they'd spend all winter in Ohio or Florida or somewhere else. And the people locally really weren't engaged other than using the land for the, recreation. So they knew about the Refuge, but most people didn't know we even existed, including the township clerk of the township the Refuge is in. She knew about the Refuge clearly, but she didn't know there was a friends group she could join. So we had a lot of messaging to do. So the board, while in some ways reluctant, was willing to take on this risk of a new fundraising event. If it became a fundraising event, okay, but it was mostly a fundraising event to build relationships and build new members. So we started by forming a steering committee of local community leaders. Again, most of them weren't members of the Friends, but knew about the Refuge and were willing to come together and do something that sounded like fun. Next slide. So as I went around talking to different people, trying to learn more about what they knew about the refuge and what they didn't, I mean, I'd go shopping in a little town not too far from here, and they'd ask me about ABJ and Faye, our two mated loons. And I'm like, but do you know about the refuge? And it's like, no, but I know about ABJ, and I know he wasn't on the pond this year. So that was very popular. So people love loons and they love their lakes, and the idea started to come together that we should do something with loons as a gateway really to talking and teaching about the refuge, the importance of all the species out there and the habitat. We wanted it, as I said, to be a fundraising event first. And we wanted to have a members only element so that we could say to new members, these are the benefits of membership. So you get invited to some special events, which we really had never had. We wanted it to be fun, but respectful and science-based. So when we first started talking about loons, we kind of went down the Looney Tune path, but we decided that's not right. We really want to talk about loons and the science of loons and how they're sort of a harbinger of some of the other changes in the habitat and the species we have. We also wanted it to be free. Demographically, our local population is, many of them struggle, although a lot of our summer people don't. So we wanted it to be free with everybody having an opportunity to attend. But we also wanted to make sure there are opportunities to donate or sponsor if we could find people who wanted to do that. And again, we wanted to appeal to younger generations and to both locals and summer residents. Next slide. So Lunapalooza was born, and we came up with the name, and we loved the name, and that got a lot of people excited. So we decided it would be a Friday evening event, just a couple hours, because once again, it was just going to be a fundraising event, and we just wanted to, like everybody does, but especially in the UP, we like to eat and drink. So we were going to do that and have fun doing that. So we didn't have to make an on refuge, off refuge decision because there wasn't any place to do it on the refuge. So we chose off refuge at a local art center, which is a lovely place, a lovely campus, a big investment up here. So we wanted to start with a members only reception, but we wanted to get members to invite their friends who would then become members. So we did print invitations. The people on the steering committee made their own list. We wanted to, sort of in the world of marketing, we talk about spheres of influence. So all of the people on our steering committee had a different sort of sphere of influence. We had the summer people, we had the local people, we had the professional people, we had farmers, we had nonprofit folks. So everybody came up with their list of who they wanted to invite, and they hand wrote, hand addressed to the invitations. Some people, everybody sent out about 20 or 30 invitations, others sent out more. So they were going to be invited to the members only reception. As it turned out, a lot of those people, I'll say more later, did join in order to attend the reception. We had some specially labeled wine, Lunapalooza wine, and they started their sales in May. So it was sort of pre-sales as people went to the winery, they told them about Lunapalooza. We had some special beer brewed by the Ordock Brewing Company, and we had some local musicians. In addition, we had one woman on our committee who was just amazing, and she started a student art contest. So the local school, the students did any kind of art around nature and wildlife. So it could be a poem, it could be sculpture, it could be whatever. And we recognized the winners at Lunapalooza. And the Cine photo contest was, all the entries were up and were displayed as sort of our backdrop. We also added an art auction, both live and silent. We had about 30 amazing artists from the community, and we didn't specify that it all had to be loons, but almost everything was loon, from a carved loon that I might add sold at auction for $3,000 to prints, to jewelry, to all kinds of beautiful things. And we had our first raffles too. So I had to learn how to go through the charitable solicitation requests in the state of Michigan and the raffle license and the liquor license. And those things all took a lot of time, but there were other people to help, and it was a great partnership. We also wanted to have some fun stuff. So if you're gonna come, we didn't want to just have a wine and cheese. There's a lot of that up here. We wanted to do something more fun, and we wanted to make it science. So the park or the refuge staff created a photo booth and made some loon costumes, and we gathered a bunch of props. So we had this selfie photo booth. And then probably the most popular thing was one of the local nonprofits called Common Coast Research and Conservation has been doing loon research on the refuge for years and years, and they have history of all the loons, going back to ABJ and Faye, the two oldest loons, who are now 36 and 37. So they've been on the refuge a very long time. But they had about 80 different loons that they provided as the history, and they've all been banded. So our other park ranger, she spent 2 hours looking at people's wrists, and everybody got banded as one of those loons. So they got banded and they got their loon's bio, as well as a list of all the other family members that might be at the reception. So people went around looking for their chicks or their mates or their previous mates, and they got to read about their loons. So that was really fun, and people were very proud of their bands, and we were walking around showing them. So that gave us a fun way to talk about science and the loons. And then we transitioned into an actual program and talked about the status of loons on the Great Lakes with our CNE staff. With the Michigan DNR did a presentation more statewide, and then Common Coast talked more in detail about how they capture loons, why they capture loons, what the habitat's happening, what the water quality is, and shared a lot of their loon expertise. So this was one of those events where when we were trying to decide what to do, you can come up with a million great ideas, but once you have one and it just works, it's sometimes you come up with an idea and it's like pushing a string and nothing falls into place and you just can't get traction. This one just worked. Everybody said yes. We mailed out to every resort and every big business a letter requesting sponsorship, thinking even if they don't sponsor, now they've heard from us. They'd never heard from us before. So it was a first step in an awareness building campaign as well. Next slide. So these are some of the pictures. The guy in the upper corner is Joe Kaplan from Common Coast, and he has this sort of MacGyver style loon capture system that everybody loved, and he's such a hoot, but he's very smart, and it's years of experience to explain how they capture the loons and how they band them. There's a picture of the loon that was carved and the guy who bought it and the guy who carved it. Jen doing some banding, people at the photo booth, the auction, the wine, people listening. So just a sample of some of the activities that we crammed into 3 hours. Next slide. So we projected 80 attendees. I was thinking if we could get all of our board and all of our staff and everybody on the steering committee to bring at least one other person, you know, we could maybe break even. But we asked for RSVPs and we were up to about 180. So we kept adding food and adding and adding and adding, but more people just kept showing up. So we think at least 200 people attended. We budgeted break even. Actually, I budgeted a minus $57, but we ended up raising 7,000. We netted almost 17,000, or gross 17,000 and netted 7. So we went from not expecting anything to $7,000. So we were all shocked and happy. We budgeted 1,500 in corporate sponsorships and received, I think, 5,600, plus some in-kind donations that we did in the live raffle. Everybody said they loved it, they'd do it again. And most importantly, we started counting new members based on when our advertising for the event really kicked in. And we had 71 new members and 21 joined just at the event. So we went from a friends group of about 144, you know, to almost to our goal of 250. At one board meeting, someone said, well, what should our goal be? And somebody laughingly said, 250. We said, oh yeah, right, that's impossible, let's do it. And we've almost done it. I think we're 2 away at this point. So next slide. So the key ingredients for us, we think, was that community steering committee. They were amazing. They all chipped in, they did stuff, they gave money, they brought people, they were just amazing. Members inviting guests was critical. It's that, bring a friend idea that just really worked. People said they saw it in a number of different ways, so we'll keep doing the promotion on all the different multi-pronged strategies that we had. And it had to be interactive and fun, and it had to have some science. So what didn't work as well is that people were having so much fun that they didn't stop talking when we were trying to start the program. So next year we have a sort of a strategy for that. Again, people showed up we didn't expect, so that some people didn't get a seat. And some are hoping for more detailed research. So again, next year we probably will include some kind of workshop, more detailed. So we don't know how to keep it fresh and fun. I mean, how do you do a second Lunapalooza? Talk about the loons, but also expand into other topics. And how do we keep the people now that we got joined because of Lunapalooza engaged? So those are, I think, where we're at. Next slide. If you need anything, you can find us, and we'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Polly. That was really interesting. Karen, you ready to go? Let's see. Karen, are you unmuted? There's the slides.
Hey, so I am Karen Holzer, and I'm the executive director for the nonprofit Friends Group of DC Booth Historic National Fish Hatchery in Spearfish, South Dakota. Slide. I'm going to talk a little bit about community-driven fundraising events. The positives about these type of events are they build community support and awareness. They provide the opportunity for community participation. They can address a specific need or issue, which actually happened in our case when we had a potential closure threat in 2013. They encourage social interaction with community groups, and they just create fun. Slide. I'm going to showcase 3 of our community-driven fundraising events that we have here at the hatchery. We have Black Hills Beer Run, a Canyon Acoustic Music Concert, and Hot Rods for Hatcheries car show. Slide. The first one I'll talk about is the Beer Run. This is a 5K, and this was the 10th year that we've had it. There we have costumes and prizes, beer tasting and brats, and door prizes. Slide. So this shows a little bit. Teresa is the one in the white sweatshirt. She kind of has ramrodded it with her family. And this is the 10th year. Like I said, we had 230 runners this year. So lots of t-shirts went out. Slide. This is a picture that was taken, I believe, in 2022 as the runners were gathering to take off. Slide. So the next couple slides are just show you a little variety of some of the costumes and creativity. So we have mustard and ketchup, we have Mickey and Minnie Mouse. We had someone that made a cape out of the old t-shirts, and we had Little Red Riding Hood that had a basket of empty beer cans yeah, so that's okay. Okay, Eden, next slide. I kind of backtracked a little bit. So they're also, the contests are themed. So the winner this year in 2023 was the fisherman catching a fish. And so she actually had a plastic hook in her mouth. And then we had a group of hunters. So we give prizes for a hatchery themed, a group, and also most creative or fun. Slide. These are just a couple other ones. The group, the family on the right has participated several years. One year they were the Flintstones, Fred and Wilma. And this was them this year. So slide. This is after the run, where everybody gathers for brats, beer tasting. We give outdoor prizes and costumes. Slide. The second one that I'll talk about is the Canyon Acoustic Series. So this consisted of 8 weekly free acoustic music concerts that are held in the city park. They are sponsored by a nonprofit called Spread the Tunes, which promotes music in the community. And we were provided with a check for $12,500 for the profits from the beer sales from those 8 weeks. Slide. So the next couple slides just show a little bit about this event. Slide. Bandshell, musicians, guitars, lawn chairs, dancing, food trucks, beer, and free. So these two show that it is important that we as the Hatchery or the Friends Group are present and participating in each of these community-driven events. So here we have a board member that's sitting in our canopy, of course, has membership cards and so forth. This year, because the commemorative stamp came out for the endangered species, we had those displayed and we're able to talk about them at our table. The ice cream shop in town has created a rainbow trout ice cream, which they have been providing over the last 5 or 6 years. It is a raspberry swirled green tea ice cream with chocolate bits. Slide. And our third one that I'll talk about a little bit is our hot rods for the Hatchery Car Show. This one started as a senior year college project by Sydney, who is pictured here. This year, they provided us a check for $4,200. It was a short 4-hour, it was on the grounds, and just a lot of fun, and definitely brought a new and different group of people to the hatchery, which is what we're always looking for. Slide. And this one and the next slide both just kind of show a little bit about what it looked like on the grounds with all the cars. We had over 180 vehicles on our 11-acre campus with over 500 attendees. So these are things that I would encourage you to think about when considering and working with community-driven fundraising events. You need to build on opportunities that your community embraces. Maybe it's bikes, maybe it's art, coffee, draft beer, music, and use those fundraising events as also educational opportunities, which the previous presenters have all done an excellent job of giving examples of all of those things. But we work to include educational and awareness components in all of the programs. We were present, we had information, we had activities, and of course we had the opportunity to become a member. So it's also important to look into the community for potential partners and volunteers. We also, as a staff and working with our board, we always try to listen for unheard voices and unserved populations that might just be looking for an invitation to come and enjoy the hatchery or some of the activities that we have. And to remember, all events, fundraising, and programming all have the potential of educating and promoting your site. Slide. And finally, thank you, thank you, thank you. Be proactive in thanking and recognizing your community, the volunteers, the organizers, your board, your U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service agency, government entities such as your city or county that may be providing space, law enforcement, or other services, your donors, your sponsors, your staff, but most of all, be sure to thank everyone who attended and supported the event, whether it was in person or virtually. Slide. And that brings us to the end. This is our website. We encourage you to come and check us out, learn more about us, and we have 3 Facebook pages that we also love to share with all of you and all of our members. Thank you for allowing me to share some of our activities.
Thanks, Karen. And Sue has just sent me a note that she's having technical difficulties. So Sue, do you want to then, and given the time, forgo the presentation and just open things up for questions and answers? She might still be having technical difficulties.
Yeah, she's coming and going. I can see in the chat. She's
Okay.
leaving and coming back again. So why don't we just go ahead and open it up for questions, Joan?
Yeah,
And we
sounds
have one. We have one in the chat. Ken wants to know, Polly, what is the demography of your membership and board in terms of location and wealth?
Of the board
Yes,
or membership? I'm sorry,
that's board. The question was board.
just our board. Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's easy. There's only 7 of us. We all live probably in different zip codes actually, but within an hour of the refuge. And in terms of wealth, well, I don't know exactly, but I would say middle upper middle class probably. Probably the most part we would be a little bit above the average of the UP as a whole, just the board members.
And
I
I
think the
just
membership
reread
is a
it.
little bit more reflective.
Okay, I was just going to say, excuse me, Polly. I just reread it, and it does ask for membership as well. So if you
Oh,
can give us
that's
some
like-
idea of, yeah.
I don't know what anybody's income is really. Just guessing about their education and the jobs I know they have. The membership, we really do have a very small percent of members from the UP and from our immediate area. And I think it's fairly representative of the communities. We have a whole host of people, teachers and retirees, but again, older, not very many young people are members. And many of them are the folks that travel downstate or elsewhere in the winter, so they don't live here. I don't know if
Thank
that
you,
answers your
Polly.
question.
Thanks.
Oh, Ken will get back with us if he has more questions. So
I could
Chloe
do
asked
better
a
if you really need more
question.
detail.
Chloe's asked a question that we've talked about among ourselves. She says, great presentations. Where can I go to find resources? What a friend's nonprofit group can legally do for fundraising. For example, I see some people did raffles, but I thought that was not allowed from a group like ours. Those regulations are Fish and Wildlife regulations, and you need to talk with your local Fish and Wildlife, your liaison or your project manager or whatever. But from what I heard, and I know from ours at Tualatin River, we were not on the refuge. We were at an off-refuge site, and there we can legally do raffles. That's as close as I can come to an answer for that. Anybody else want to take a stab at it, Joan?
Yeah, and I would just say, guys, if you're looking to understand what Fish and Wildlife Services policies are on this, that Corfa does have our website, and in the resource center, there is the Friends policy and agreement, and it does, in that specify what you can do on refuge. And Bonnie, I saw your hand up, and Polly, I see your hand up too, so.
And
Bonnie?
I would just add to that, that your state also has laws and regulations around raffles and fundraising. Those can generally be found on the Secretary of State for your state's website. What we did at Tualatin so that we didn't have to purchase one of those licenses is there's a threshold of what you can raise. So we only sold up to that amount of tickets for our raffle.
Thanks, Bonnie. And there were a couple of people who brought that up. The regulations vary from state to state, so be sure to check on what's allowed in your state. Polly, you had your hand up.
I was just going to add that in our partnership agreement with our refuge, if we wanted to raise more than $25,000, we need to have a separate fundraising agreement.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, and it's raising $25,000 for a specific project. Okay, so just be aware of that too.
And Joan, that's all the questions that I saw in the chat, unless I missed something.
So folks, if you
Are
want to
there
ask
others? Yeah.
questions, raise your hand. And or Ken, take yourself off of mute and go to it.
I'll hold for a while, let some of the others ask, and then I'll come back. I see Chloe.
Not seeing anybody else right now, but let me double check. Go for it, Ken.
Chloe has her hand up.
Oh,
Yeah,
Chloe,
Chloe has her hand
Oh,
up.
Tony, okay.
Oh, go ahead, Chloe.
Chloe, do you have a question?
She
Ken,
says
why
she has she's having technical difficulties.
okay, I'll pick up. I just wanted to give everybody a chance. I wanted to reinforce, Joan talks about the specific project, raising it. That's one area of nuance on it. Another one is on or off refuge, raising money. And I noticed that some of these activities you've talked about today were on refuge, some were off refuge. And under the partnership agreement, often what you're doing off refuge doesn't come under what's the reach of the agreement on it. So, and there's also raising money for a specific project. One of the things we do at times is our money is often raised to support the habitat, which is larger than the refuge, although the refuge is a significant part of the habitat. It gives us some flexibility to be a little bit more independent and raise things, and doesn't always come under the scope of the partnership agreement.
But again, we are leaving the interpretation of the partnership agreement to Fish and Wildlife Service. We're not the experts on that because it is interpreted differently in different areas, and we found that out from experience. So please talk to your local Fish and Wildlife, your Fish and Wildlife staff, or your regional friends coordinator, or someone like that if you have questions about what can and can't be done for fundraising and what the funds can be used for.
Yeah, free legal advice is worth what you pay for it.
Thank you, free legal advisor.
And
Chloe, have you gotten are you
Oh.
back on? Okay, Chloe has put it in the chat. I will pop my question in the chat. A big discussion that comes up in my group is the difference between Friends and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service volunteers, and what we can do as Friends representatives versus a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service volunteer or representative. For the scope of fundraising, you are strictly fundraising for the Friends, correct? Are you
Yes.
allowed to have Fish and Wildlife Service, whoops, I lost it. Are you allowed to have Fish and Wildlife Service employees or volunteers involved then? So I can tell you we had Fish and Wildlife Service people, including regional office people and our local staff at the booth, at their booth at the Tualatin River event, the Brews for Birds event. They were just providing information, so they weren't fundraising, quote unquote. They were just providing a booth and some information. And fortunately, I think our very next webinar is on the subtle differences between Friends volunteers and Refuge volunteers. So some of those questions will be answered in that webinar.
And Chloe, in regards to this too, and what Fish and Wildlife Service can do and what they can't do, and service volunteers have to follow the same sort of ethics that a Fish and Wildlife Service employee needs to follow. And it's really, if you go and ask them, can you be involved in the fundraising? It's real important for them to know exactly what they need to follow in terms of ethics. It's, and I would leave it to them to answer that question for you. Okay.
Lane asks an off-topic question. With regard to the participants on the Zoom meetings, how many participants are the average number on these Zooms? Joan, do you know that off, or Eden, do you know that off the top of your head?
I was just doing a report for Refuge Association on this morning. So I would say in the last 3 months, we're averaging about 40 participants on each one of the webinars. And then approximately, around 30 or so people watching the webinars after the fact within the next month or so. Are the numbers increasing on these calls? They're holding pretty steady, I would say. They were definitely higher during COVID when we were so desperate to hear from one another and see one another. So numbers have gone down since then. What percentage of the friends groups are participating? Great question. And I don't know what the answer is. I do know in general about, I think we figure about 80% of all of the friends groups are participating in some sort of the NWA Corfa activities. So if you know of groups that don't know about what we're doing, please pass the word on and let them know that, their input is welcome. We want to be able to make sure that we're presenting things to friends that you all want and are, importance to you. Any other questions, comments?
Not seeing any more in the chat. I don't see any more hands up, and we're right at the top of the hour, whichever hour it happens to be in your neighborhood.
Please, we ask you, hey, we'd love feedback. We'd love ideas. If you don't put them in the chat now, please, join the Facebook group and throw your ideas in there or on our website too. Just go ahead and send us your comments. Polly, I see your hand up.
I just want to say, it's really sad that we couldn't hear Sue's presentation. She's got amazing story to tell. So we should make sure everybody knows to call her.
Yeah, she doesn't have anything else to do.
Yeah. So, but her story is just so good. So I just wanted to say that.
And we'll make sure that her slides are part of what you all get. Unfortunately, technical difficulties prevented her from joining us at the last minute. Okay. So if there's nothing else, thank you. Thank you to our presenters. I know that, you put a lot of time and effort into it, found it extremely interesting, and just so pleased that you guys were so successful in your friend and fundraising events. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. See you next month.
Bye, folks.